What is up, everybody? Coming to you live from my parents' house. We got episode 29 of the Changavi show. 29 episodes. Damn, we're already here. Those of you that are new, welcome in. My name is Anuj. Last name, you know the show title. Come on. Do I have to say it? Chang Gang? Let's go. That, by the way, that's the name of our fan base is Chang Gang. Um, it's an oldie but a goodie. I'll tell the story behind the fan base later, but hope y'all are doing well. We got a big packed show today, and we honestly don't have very much time to spare. So let's get right into it. I actually want to give you guys a little update on one of the stories that I covered. God, a while ago. This was like October of last year. I did a story about Gabby Petito. We did a couple topics about her, talked about the case of the story, why this thing is so relevant, all of these things. So I kind of wanted to like shed some light because this story is really in all its entirety wrapped up. So for those of you that don't know, Gabby Petito was this missing I can say missing white girl who blonde, attractive, blah blah blah. And she basically was missing for about a month and no one really knew who she was, but her boyfriend like went back to her hometown and like hung out with his parents and stuff, and then he went missing. So it was like this whole weird saga of like trying to figure out and trying to find her boyfriend and then trying to find her and then trying to find like her remains. And eventually they found her remains, and it was found that she was killed through manual strangulation. And then there was this huge manhunt for this guy, Brian Laundrie, who was her boyfriend. And eventually they, by just tracking, they eventually found him, but they found him dead. So they only found his remains, and I think he killed himself, from what I know. And after that, the FBI basically found his journal, and they eventually were able to rule that Brian Laundrie killed Gabby Petito, which was what all our suspicions confirmed. So this isn't really an update, but more so like giving the full bookend to the story. It's rare that I cover stories that actually have bookends. It's kind of funny. A lot of the stories I do cover are very like ongoing and fluid, like the ones I'm going to cover today for the most part. But this one was very much like, oh, okay, missing person, unfortunately passed away, and then boyfriend's crazy, and then we find boyfriend, and then journal rules that boyfriend that committed suicide eventually what's it called? Eventually admitted and fessing up to killing his girlfriend in the journal. So yeah, that's the update. I guess the FBI has pretty much put a bookend to it. That's what they're concluding is the cause of death for Gabby Petito, is that her boyfriend did indeed kill her. If you guys want to look more into the case, you can. I talked a little bit. I mean, when this case was popping, I talked a little bit about how and why um, Gabby Petito like was popular, which was the fact that she was white and all of these things, and she's white woman missing white woman syndrome, and there's just plenty of other races that go missing that just do not get the publicity that Gabby Petito got. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's over. So yeah, that was the little update on Gabby Petito. And yeah, the story is kind of just wrapped itself up in a bow. So that's what I wanted to tell you. Sorry if there's a lot of background noise. The garbage truck is out. It's Thursday morning, so what are you gonna do? But let's go from Gabby Petito to another case that has caught the uh what's it called? Caught the attention of the nation, but not in a positive light, and also in a very different lens of everything. So Lia Thomas, okay, this is our sports topic for the day. One of two sports topics of the day. Yeah, double trouble. Lia Thomas, listen, those of you that don't know, which I highly doubt is very many of you, if you've been paying attention to the conversations that have been going on surrounding this whole case, she's been the talk of the sports world for the last week. I mean, everybody knows this girl's name. And it's personally something I think I have a very unique perspective on because I've been hearing a lot of the same echo chamber. And I think most of the same echo chamber that I hear is the same echo chamber that listens to this podcast. So I'm gonna kind of spit my perspective later, but let's go through the facts real quick because I'm sure there's some people in here that are like, Lia Thomas who? Like, what is going on? Okay. So let's frame it for what it is. Lia Thomas was formerly a man. So she is a transgender woman. She was formerly a man. She swam as one for the University of Pennsylvania for college athletics for a while, and she was like a average swimmer. Okay, she was nothing crazy. She wasn't breaking records. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't like what's it called? The biggest name in all of college swimming as a man, right? She was an average college male swimmer. Then she transitioned back in 2019. And basically, she went through the year of hormone therapy, all this stuff, followed the NCAA guidelines that were set out in stone for her, and transitioned to becoming a woman. And now she's winning all sorts of awards. She's winning like 2 of the 500 free. She's just copping awards left, right, and center, and she's breaking records at the collegiate level. She's been proven to be like a dominating force in the in the swimming game, particularly on the women's side. And the reason why Lia Thomas has become this topic of conversation that she has is that recently she placed first in the 500 free, which is an event that I believe like Missy Franklin and like Katie Ledecky have won in the past. So it's like a big deal. And usually like that kind of tells you what like the next crop of Olympians are going to be. So she placed first in the 500 free, did really well. But here's the thing. Like, and that's what really put her on the map was that first place in the 500 free. Everyone was like, whoa, 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 this is so unfair. This is so this and that and the other. And I got so many messages from people being like, who the hell does she think she is? The thing that people don't know is in her other two events, she placed 5th and 8th. So like, I don't know, that argument kind of goes void if you're thinking about it. But the other two events are just something people like to forget about because they have their volitions confirmed with their argument is confirmed with the first case. Anyway, that's so basically, yeah, she won the 500 free in the NCAA championships and all these things. It's turned into this whole bottle thing of controversy. So that's Lia Thomas. But why is this important? Listen, we're in a world where transgender athletes today, this is such a new conversation, but it's going to be a conversation that continues to come up and continues to come up throughout time. We are in the early stages of integrating transgender, like women and men, into sports. And it's going to be this everlasting conversation of like, should they get their own league? Like, do they deserve to be allowed into the league? Like, what is going on? And there's going to be a vocal majority. I don't know if it's a majority or a minority at this point, but I think there's a vocal minority of people right now who are very just anti-transgender sports. Like, yo, no, it's competitively unfair. The competitive advantage, they have such a competitive advantage, particularly for trans women, or particularly for trans men. No, trans women, sorry. They have a competitive advantage in all of these things. Oh, and hormonally, or their bodies are built different and all of these things. And this is the argument, like the quote unquote scientific argument that has been presented. So I'm here to say this is what I feel. This is how I feel about Lia Thomas, straight up. But I'm gonna get to that in a second because I want to keep continuing here for a little bit. So another thing is that to kind of counteract that point of like Lia Thomas, oh, first place in the NCAA, whatever. Another thing, there also have been trans athletes that have been integrated into cisgender sports who have won nothing. They've won nothing. They've just been entered into the events, but they've not placed. They haven't won medals. They haven't won anything. We're just talking about this right now because Lia Thomas got first place in a huge event. Okay. Have you heard of Laurel Hubbard? She is a weightlifter from New Zealand. She's transgender. She weightlifted in the Olympics and she didn't medal. Theoretically, if there was a competitive advantage for every single transgender athlete that played any sport, particularly for trans women, we should see them all dominate, right? But why? Why aren't they all dominating? I don't know. That just doesn't add up in my head. There's other transgender athletes too that I'm sure. Laurel Hubbard was the one that I knew of, but I'm sure there are other transgender athletes who haven't dominated their field. It's just Lia Thomas is the one to do that. And the thing is, weightlifting, we could talk about Laurel Hubbard for a second. Weightlifting is a sport about pure strength. It's about, if anything, weightlifting should be the sport that the biological and the competitive advantage should come into play the most. But why didn't she dominate her event? Why didn't Laurel Hubbard dominate her event? If it was all about physical strength and quote unquote, the male body is built to withstand more weight and can lift more weight, why did she not get the gold medal in her, weightlifting event? Why? It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense. And if you're going to use the biological argument, it doesn't add up for me. Listen, Lia Thomas is, God, I hate the fucking garbage can. Hold on. Let this thing go away. Fuck the garbage truck, dude. It was in the middle of my flow. Okay, anyway. But so that's a sport about pure strength. But tell me something. Lia Thomas is competing in swimming, which yes, you need to have swimming. Like if you're built a certain way, you can win more for sure. So she's competing in swimming and she's winning, but she's not winning all the time, right? I said she got 5th and 8th. So why? And she's still lost in her other 2 events. So why? I don't know. The science argument to me just doesn't add up. And I was looking deeper into the science argument just to see like what exactly people are saying in regards to hormones and body type and how this all can potentially relate to competitive advantage. And there's really studies on both sides that prove both points. There isn't concrete evidence on either side to say, like, yo, this is how I feel, and yo, this is how I feel. There are scientists that say that the competitive advantage is negligible, and there are scientists that say there is this little bit of a slight competitive advantage, if not a great competitive advantage. And so there is a lot of variation within the scientific studies, and there's not much all of us can do right now because the field is so new. Anyway, so the swimmers were hella mad that were competing against Lia Thomas, and they said she had this huge biological advantage. And I mean, dude, I can't get over this biological advantage. There's so many variables. It's such a nuanced conversation if you want to talk about the biological advantage because there's scientific studies that prove both. It's so weird. But yeah, the swimmers were really mad about it for some reason, and they like didn't even shake her hand, which I thought was kind of a classless move in my opinion. It's like even if someone beats you and they have a quote unquote biological advantage, you shake their hand. It's sports, okay? You lost. Look your opponent in the eye, say good game, move on. Okay, that's what you always have to do. I feel like I don't know. That's just basic sportsmanship in my opinion, and that just shows a lot of disrespect. But here's the thing. I'm not here to disrespect that side too, because I totally understand. Okay. There's definitely a point on that side. A lot of people 100% have that point that she is unfair and there's biological differences because she was born a man and blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. I'm all for trans athletes, if you couldn't tell already. I really am. And the question that gets a lot of people pissed off is, did Lia Thomas do this all fairly? And so where do I stand on it? I mean, I'm pretty sure I've been arguing the trans side this whole time. I want to start off by saying this before I get into my piece real quick. I want to start off by saying Lia Thomas, by all indications, is a really nice person. She's very quiet. She kind of keeps to herself. She's studying economics. She is a human being. Okay. So before you all get heated into this debate of transgender athletes, just remember that this is an actual human being who's dealing with the consequences of this right now. So don't hate her. Don't hate the establishment. Don't hate her. She's not doing anything wrong. She's going about her life. She's enjoying, or I hope she's enjoying her life. She's probably, she just wants to swim. At the end of the day, she's an athlete too. She loves her sport. She works hard. I'm sure she's, a good athlete. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt for sure. Listen, she's also done nothing wrong, and she transitioned to a woman for personal reasons. There's also a lot of people that don't understand what being transgender really is, which is, like people transition to being a woman or transitioning to being a man for personal reasons. And for people to like shit on her in front of her face is like, fuck you. Like, why? You don't deserve to, like, she doesn't deserve to get shat on. She can do whatever she wants. It's a fact. So fuck them. Anyway, also, I think here's the other thing. I think the NCAA's policy on this whole transgender stuff needs overhaul, if that's clear. In regards to hormones, listen, the science does have a point. If you transition too quickly, definitely you could have some sort of advantage. And I think that's what we're seeing with Lia Thomas is that she was allowed back in very quickly. So I think what we need to do, or sports needs to do in general, is that every league throughout America and potentially also internationally needs to come up with like the same policies so that in order to do that, we like everybody's following the same hormone policies, following the same schedule, all of these things, and making sure that everything is just like the same. So it's equal and no one is doing anything more or anything less, right? Because throughout like the international Olympic policy is 36 months of hormone therapy and suppression. So all leagues I think should also kind of field into that as well because that seems to be the most progressive policy. It is extreme, but it is the most it is the one. And also like I question this to everybody who's anti-transgender athletes. Like, who are you to judge someone's personal choice? Right? I feel like a lot of this Lia Thomas slander, a lot of where this is coming from is this whole idea of like we believe a woman to be. We believe her to look a certain way and to act a certain way, and transgender is this like new term to mainstream society that not a lot of people are understanding. And I think we need to have empathy before we have this conversation. I think we need to really have really like just accept that fact in our heads because a lot of us have unconscious biases. Like it's not any of your faults. It's not my fault. It's not her fault, their fault, his fault. Like it doesn't matter. We all have them, because we grew up in a society where we're taught that okay, X looks like X and Y looks like Y. Um, so yeah, I think we need to have some empathy. And I just saw this when I was doing my research. Hot take here. Is Lia Thomas equivalent to the Jackie Robinson for the transgender community? I don't mean to put those two in the same conversation. And I know that like even saying that is just a hot take in general. Lia Thomas equals Jackie Robinson? I don't know. I think it really could. And I ask all these people who are very anti-transgender sports and who are very vocal about it. Do you know transgender people? Have you ever like really had a conversation with that member of the community? What do they say? I'm curious, right? Ask them. I encourage like dialogue with the transgender community. I encourage dialogue with your transgender friends if you have them or transgender people that you know and just ask them these questions because we're never going to advance as a society if we don't continue to learn from each other, right? And also, why don't we talk about trans men when it comes to this competitive advantage argument? I'm so confused. Shouldn't that be a biological advantage for men, right? Oh, men have a biological advantage, and trans men are just gonna lose every time, right? Like, I don't know, dude. People should do what they want as long as they like. My philosophy in life, very very simple. People should do whatever the fuck they want, just as long as they don't get hurt or just as long as they don't hurt other people or hurt themselves. Anyway, look, we got to humanize. My point is, we got to humanize transgender athletes before we jump to conclusions. People love to talk about the theory and people love to talk about competitive advantage, but they don't recognize the fact that there are actual people being affected by this. And we need to look at it from empathy. And the thing is, I think this is how I totally feel about transgender athletes. Transgender athletes can be looked at from a Brown versus Board of Education perspective, separate but equal, right? Where, yes, we could recognize that they are a separate, like transgender individuals are a separate entity, but they are equal to their cisgender counterparts. And so, thus, they should be able to participate. That's how I feel. That's truly how I feel. And everything in this field is so new. Everything that continues to get written is changing day by day, hour by hour. This is a fluid situation. And so I encourage everybody's opinions to continue to be fluid. And I can say this as someone who was on the other side just a couple years ago. If you told me a couple years ago, like, oh, should transgender athletes compete with cisgender athletes? I'd be like, I don't know, competitive advantage. But the more and more I do my research, the more and more I read the science, all of these things, I just realize it continues to be an ever moving conversation. And there's new science coming out every day. There's new rules coming out every day. There's going to be a bunch more like cases like Lia Thomas and other individuals that go into the transgender or go into the sports world, or maybe other walks of life. And we're going to see this conversation continue to flow and continue to change. So I just suggest don't keep your opinions closed, right? Let it move, let it continue to be fluid, and just have some empathy. Be nice to people who are in that situation because you don't know what they're going through. It's probably crazy hard. So yeah, I guess that's what I would encourage is just approach this conversation with empathy, be nice, and yeah, continue to just keep your opinion open and recognize that these athletes are human as well. Okay, that's all I got for Lia Thomas. But let's transition from Lia Thomas to another thing of college sports. We're talking about college sports today. March Madness. March Madness has obviously, been the topic of conversation here in the sports world for the last couple weeks. And I know there are a lot of people on here that listen to this podcast who probably don't watch a lot of sports. They're like, yo, March Madness, like, what is that? That just sounds like me, how my brain is feeling in my various careers or my walk of life during March. Like, it's just mad. Like, I don't know. But let me explain to you why March Madness is so awesome, right? I love March Madness because the thing is, it's the only thing in sports really where anybody can truly win, right? So if you look at the NBA and the NFL, theoretically any team could win, but also, for real though, if you're like actually approaching the conversation, there's only about 8 to 10 teams that can win in each one of those leagues. In March Madness, I forget how many. There's 128 teams in the bracket. Every single one of those 128 teams, I would say, has a really good shot at winning. Yeah, are there tournament favorites? Absolutely, but can a team actually go on a Cinderella run out of like some random conference in the middle of Florida and just pull out a win? Absolutely, it's possible. It's the sport that it's the most possible in. And the whole thing is so great for one reason and one reason only. And you're gonna laugh when I say this because there is, but there isn't. There's no money involved in March Madness. Ha 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 ha. Of course there isn't. There's money. Yes. Well, of course. Look, there's money from the business side, but the athletes who are purely playing the game are not getting paid. They're getting paid. I mean, obviously California passed that law of like you can make a what's it called? You can make a living or you can make money off your name, but that's really for popular players. That's for like players who are going to go in the draft or players that are just well known, not really like the local Division One stars of Chattanooga, Tennessee, right? Not really, but I mean, of course, they could be taking money from under the table. Who am I to judge? But I mean, I guess it's wrong. But who taking money from under the table? But these guys aren't getting paid for the most part. These college athletes are really, I mean, they use the tournament to try to make a name for themselves. There's something called the March Madness Tournament Hero, and people's draft stocks could be risen because of that. And for a lot of these guys, it's really the last time that they're going to be in the national spotlight for a long time and possibly forever. I mean, they'll probably just go on to their future career, their future corporate job. It's the place, like the March Madness is this place where everyone goes to prove themselves, but everyone collectively in the tournament isn't shit. That's what everyone recognizes. It's like, oh, like you may be the number 2 pick in the draft, but you haven't been picked number 2. You still haven't set foot in the NBA. You still go to organic chemistry 101 at Duke. Like you're not shit. And so everybody, except for like Coach K and the legends of college basketball, you're not shit. You don't have shit. You're not anybody. And it's also the concept of like college kids because they're playing this game that they absolutely love. And they have to oftentimes go through a lot of adversity. I mean, college athletes aren't like flown out on private planes and all of these things. Like you're taking 10-hour bus rides to random cities in the middle of Mississippi to play a game and all of these things, right? Except if if you're in a big program, then maybe, but like you may have some of that NBA lifestyle, but not particularly. The best March Madness stories are truly the ones that like come from nothing to make like a huge run in the tournament, right? A small school, bad program, been doubted for years, makes it into the tournament and goes deep. They become America's sweetheart for the month, right? St. Peter's this year, right? They're in the Sweet 16 right now. We'll see how far they get, but Everyone thought, oh, okay, shitty program, Jersey City. Nice story. They even made the tournament. They're probably going to get crushed first round by Kentucky. They ended up beating Kentucky. Everyone's like, whoa, this is huge. And then they played the hottest team in college basketball, Murray State, and they beat them. A program that is one of the top ones in the nation. Now they're in the Sweet 16 all of a sudden. Everybody's like, St. Peter's can beat absolutely anybody now. And where is St. Peter's from? They're from Jersey City. Their campus is literally one block. It's super small. Their weight room, like there's a popular story going around on social media. Their weight room is like they can't play music during their weight lifts because it's the wall. They share a wall with Philosophy 101, which is like their class. Like the roofs are leaky. They had to cancel home games because their facilities are so bad. Like they're underfunded. They're just a bunch of guys who really love the sport of basketball, and they found their way into the tournament, and then they ended up being in the Sweet 16. It's pretty cool. And honestly, college basketball is, for the most part, I'd say like 85% of the players in college basketball are players who are probably have a better, who are more focused on their degrees rather than making it to the league or pro or overseas or any of these things. Because even if though you're playing Division I basketball is massive. Okay. And you have the cream of the crop of the talent that gets picked in the NBA draft and is going to go on to have an NBA career, whether that be as a role player or as a potential star, or as a potential star of the league, which is rare and rare. It gets rare as you move up, or your guy's just getting his degree. That's really what college basketball comes down to. And there's always one team every year in March Madness that just makes a run. And it could be like a big school that was ranked pretty low, but they made a huge run. But everyone makes a run one year that no one thought was possible, right? UCLA last year was an 11 seed and they made it all the way to the Final Four. And it's this whole concept that every game could be the last game for any of these guys, right? They're seniors on most of these teams who are probably just going to go to corporate America after this, or go back and graduate and finish and just finish their college lives. And that's the thing. This is their last shot at winning this championship that they've probably aspired to win for the last 3 years. And this is their last chance, right? And for some of these guys, they're like, yo, I'm happy to be in the tournament. St. Peter's is probably hella happy to be just in the tournament. They're like, yo, I'm in the tourney. I'm happy. That's all I care about, right? Fair. But I think March Madness has way more of an appeal than pro sports, in my opinion, to just the casual fan in general, because in pro sports, these guys are getting paid millions and millions of dollars, right? They're getting paid to be there. It's not like an authentic representation. It's like yes, of course, a lot of them love the game and they play so purely, and I think that's why we're so attracted to those athletes. But there are a lot of players. There's a lot of freaking players who play for the big contracts. Okay, let's be real. It's how they make their livelihood. I don't fault them. In college basketball, you're trying to make a name for yourself. So everyone is out there just playing because they actually love the game and this is what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And so seeing the students of like various schools just get really excited, and then the fan factor too. It's like it's usually just students or alumni that have attended that school in the past, and so they just get super humped. Wow, I said super humped. Yeah, that was fucking weird. Super pumped and super excited over these tournament runs. And I just love that. I love how the fandom is so authentic because it's like, oh, I went to the University of Arizona. Oh, I went to St. Peter's or wherever, whatever school it may be. And most of the games are close. Most of the games are really close. And so seeing, students get pumped and all that, pumped is pretty cool. And it's a good energy. There aren't very many sporting events like that in the world that have that very that authenticity to it. That like players aren't getting paid millions of dollars to be there. And March Madness has that. So it's really cool that it has that charm. And I wanted to pay my respects to March Madness, so to speak, in that sense. But listen, we got a bunch more topics to go. We got pop culture to do. So let's get into Elizabeth Holmes, who has absolutely nothing to do with the NCAA because she is a dropout. Fun fact, dropped out of Stanford. I've been watching a show called The Dropout recently. And this topic has sort of been inspired by that. It's a show called The Dropout. It's on Hulu. Amanda Seyfried kills her role as Elizabeth Holmes. She's fantastic. She should get. I think she's gonna get the Emmy nom next year. I hope she does. She's just phenomenal in this show. She's so good. And it's like it was also, to be fair, as one of those roles that was just like built for nominations, but she's also just she just did really well. You should definitely watch the show. It does like a super good job of like showing the story as like showing the story in like a unique way because everyone's heard the Theranos story at this point, right? You saw it on HBO. There's probably a few people who have it, and so it's new. But this is kind of like a dramatized sense of like, oh, like this is the show, or this is Theranos, and like this is the vibe and all of these things. So it's definitely a really good way of showing the story in a new light, which is cool. Definitely watch the show for sure. Also, another funny story. Funny story. I just found this out. So Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes is like a local story because it's about Silicon Valley fraud. And it's about this woman who basically comes up with this idea to test for like 100 different diseases with one drop of blood. This is her idea. And obviously the technology isn't there yet. So it's, it's like turns into like a fraud slash scam story. Scam story. America. Scam. What? I never thought we were into scam. Anyway, funny story. Since this is such a local story, it's from the Silicon Valley. It takes place like 15 minutes away from my house, Palo Alto. My brother's ex-dermatologist was called in to be a part of the trial. His name is Sunil Dhawan. So Sunil Dhawan, if you're watching this, bro, and if any of you had Dr. Dhawan as your dermatologist, just know he was on the Theranos board and may or may not have been in jail. So if you want to talk about shout out to the dermatologist that my brother had. He was in this trial. I did some research and I was like, wow, he got called in. That's kind of cool. But if you want a local Bay Area story, this is 100% a Bay Area story right here. It's cool. For those of you though that aren't really understanding who Elizabeth Holmes is or what our girl's doing, why are we talking about Elizabeth like this? It's quite simple. Okay. Log line for Elizabeth Holmes. She's basically this girl that's really smart and went to Stanford, and her only goal in life was to be Steve Jobs. And she did everything in her power to make sure that happened. And eventually, she was like, yo, I don't need college. Fuck y'all. Peace. She's not the example I cite when I say I don't want to go to college. Not Elizabeth Holmes, no. But, I mean, for a while I might have, actually, back in 2017 and whatnot. But it basically talks about her journey to forming this company and all the various things that she was willing to do to get to that point. And a lot of things lead to another. One thing leads to another. She ends up in court, goes on trial, all these stuff. But the thing is, she was actually like the top of the business world for a while. Everyone considered her to be like one of the first billionaire self-made women. So it's a cool story to see like how Theranos developed and all of these things. And I think the craziest part to me is I'm just going to continue to harp on this is how much America is obsessed with scammers. Okay, I've been talking about this idea that America loves people who cheat the system. But the thing is, arguably, people who cheat the system spend as much time cheating the system as they would like in a normal job. So it's like, bruh, why? Why? If you look at the scammer like that, it's just like, it's funny to me that like a lot of these people are the same people that are like, I never fall for it, dude. I never fall for the scam. I don't know what you're talking about. But at the same time, there are also people who are like super high up, like business executives that fell for this Theranos thing, which was in all of its entirety a scam. I mean, dude, We Crashed is another like scam like story. Bad Vegan involves like a corporation or a restaurant. Fire Festival. America loves cheating the system. I'm telling you, it's like their new favorite hobby. The reason I wanted to talk about Elizabeth Holmes is that I thought she was a really cool story because it's local to me, Silicon Valley, and I feel like Silicon Valley is this huge mystery to the entire world as to like what goes on there. It's this paradise of like what is happening. Like it's just so everything is so new and there's just new buildings and headquarters and startup life and all these things and people are like, yo, there's always something happening. But honestly, Silicon Valley is not as cool as these documentaries make it out to be. A lot of people just look like my like Indian uncles, and they just go to work, code, come back, and eat dal chawal for dinner. That's pretty much what Silicon Valley is. It's not like this exciting world that you see. But it's not what these documentaries make it out to be. Or now they're just working remotely, so they just eat dal chawal from home. They don't have to take it to the office. But a lot of this shit, it really is just, I mean, what it comes down to is it's a lot of overworked, smelly engineers who want to be the next big thing. A lot of them quit. A lot of them quit, but a few of them succeed, and that's cool. I mean, that's the thing though, is like I feel like Silicon Valley 100% though had an impact on me because I mean, look at me. I'm trying to build something, right? I'm literally in the environment of startup culture. I'm just an overworked, smelly podcaster at the end of the day. It's about building something up, and I'd like to think that hopefully I'm doing that now, in some way, shape, or form. So Silicon Valley is incredible in a lot of ways, and it does produce scams. Yes. What did you see with Elizabeth Holmes? She's one of the scams, and I would arguably say that she is the biggest scam in my eyes, out of this whole world of scams in the Valley. Um, Also, I want to take the time to talk about some of the South Asian representation within Elizabeth Holmes. You guys are like, what the fuck? Sunny Balwani, my man, my man. No, I'm kidding. He's terrible. But the guy was basically behind Elizabeth Holmes the whole way. He was like the COO of Theranos and all these things. Shout out to all the South Asians out there because like Sunny Balwani is horrible, but like also I don't know if any of you had this thought when you were thinking about Theranos and looking at Sunny Balwani, but like we got a criminal now, guys. Like we got a white collar criminal we could look up to. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Like Sunny Balwani, new criminal we can look up to. We're the bad boys now. See, every time like a girl's like, Indian boys ain't bad enough. Like they're so like they're so they're so nice, and all they do is nerd out. And I'll be like, and I or any other boy could just be like, you heard of Sunny Balwani? G? You heard of Sunny Balwani? The GOAT? The criminal mastermind himself. Yeah, we got all the white collar bad boy vibes on our side now. Come on now, Sunny Balwani getting hyped like this. This is truly okay. Look, all jokes aside, right? I about the show in general. I think Elizabeth Holmes is a really fascinating story. I really do. The show does a very good job of telling the story. As someone who's watched Bad Blood, which is a documentary on HBO, which is good, but this is like it's a dramatized version, but it's way better in my opinion. I think it's way more entertaining. But there's this episode in the show where these companies get into a bidding war, and I think it's super cool to watch this whole thing go down. And I know I've lived here my entire life, and I just called this place like overworked, smelly engineers that eat dal, but I would love to be a fly on the wall for some of these like heated negotiations and business conversations. I think that'd be so cool. I think those are the conversations that we are not privy to as a society, and I particularly am not because I'm no one in Silicon Valley. But what can we learn from Elizabeth Holmes, right? Like, what can we learn from this entire case? And I think the thing that we have to make sure that we don't do in tech is typecast, right? Particularly typecast for Elizabeth Holmes, because there are a lot of women. There's such a lack of women in tech founders. I mean, is there like startups with a woman like at the front of it? Like rarely, dude. I don't see that often. So it's still definitely a work in progress, and we can't do women in tech dirty because of one bad apple, because there's bad apples everywhere. Look, Sunny Balwani's a bad apple for Indian guys, but Indian guys are good, dude. Come on, you can tell me that. South Asian guys are cool, right? Why do we have to, oh, come on, bro. Come on. My God. Right? Sunny Balwani, man. Well, how would you feel, Indian people out there, if everyone thought you were the next Sunny Balwani? I don't think you'd feel too good, unless you like want to be a criminal. Then maybe you might feel good. But anyway, we can't typecast, right? And also, it sucks to say, but now we live in a society where one bad apple for women or minorities or any like marginalized group can fuck us all over. I mean, that's just the truth, right? It's really that's how much it sucks. And I mean, I hate to say it, but there aren't very many women founders in tech, like I said, and I want to see more. So like, let's see another one that doesn't scam the world and can actually be the first self-made woman billionaire, and not just Mackenzie Scott, who actually I don't have a problem with. She just inherited money from Jeff. She got the bag in her own way. Okay, don't hate on Mackenzie. And I think another lesson I learned personally as a creator from this is don't try and just copy and imitate someone for the sake of it, for the sake of, oh, they reached success and they reached clout and all of these things. This is the lesson I learned from digging into the story of Elizabeth Holmes. She was someone who who tried for so long to be like Steve Jobs, who tried for so long to be one of the big founders in the Silicon Valley. And as a creator, sometimes you try to be like, I want to be the next Dobrik. I want to be the next Yes Theory. I want to be the next Casey Neistat. And we get lost in that. You as the YouTuber, you want to just be the next big one, and you're willing to do anything to get to that point, right? But sometimes you just got to be yourself. You got to let your style shine through. You got to find your niche. You got to find your communities that people like love you and they like you. And instead of going back and forth and just trying to imitate someone else and how they made it, I think that's what I learned from Elizabeth Holmes is you can't just imitate someone and just expect to make it. I copy little things from YouTubers. Absolutely. I'm sure you guys could see definitely some of the influences in my content for sure. But I want to try as much as possible and stray away from that. Kind of give my organic takes, my cage-free, 100% pasteurized takes that have no preservatives in them, right? I want you to like me for me, okay? No one else. I want you to like me for me. But yeah, go and watch this show because it's really good. But that's really one of the lessons I took away from it as a creator. And I thought you guys would be interested in hearing about that. In my opinion. So go check it out. It's on The Dropout on Hulu. Definitely worth it. It's super good. Amanda Seyfried, Naveen Andrews are the two-star characters or two-star actors in it. So it's definitely acted very well, and I think you guys will enjoy it. Yeah. Listen, let's go from Elizabeth Holmes to This Bright Future. What the hell is This Bright Future, dude? You sound like a cult or like the preschool down my street. Okay, let me explain. Damn, I need caffeine, bro. I need caffeine. So I was just drinking coffee. But This Bright Future. What is this, Anuj? So this is basically, for those of you that don't know, it's the title of Logic's memoir. Who is Logic? He's a rapper, famous author. He wrote Supermarket for those of you that know. But yeah, multi platinum award winning artist Logic wrote a memoir, and it's called This Bright Future. And honestly, it's one of the first times I haven't seen I've seen a rapper. I'd say I've seen other musicians write memoirs. It's not like an old thing, but this is one of the first times I've ever seen a rapper write a book. And I respect the fuck out of it because hip hop is normally known as this place where it's like, oh, it's all about the rap. It's all about the rhymes. We're from the streets, all of these things, right? And that's all we say. But Logic wrote a book, and Logic has always, the thing I've always admired about Logic is that he's someone who isn't afraid. He's never afraid to try something new. He's got all these creative interests, right? Whether that be with screenwriting or books or video content, and he's never been afraid to like show that off. I mean, he had a YouTube channel for a while when he was a working rapper. Like, he used to do YouTube videos with his ex-wife and all of these things, and it ended up working out. Like, he just tries new stuff, and I consider Logic to be more of a creative than he is a rapper, in my opinion, because he tries so many new things, and I respect that. And for those of you that don't know, I mean, reading this book, like, Logic means so much to me personally. He was one of the first rappers I ever got into. First person that made me like fall in love with rap. I just loved how creative he was and how he was so different from like the rest of the industry, right? When you think of rap, you think of like gangster rap, like rapping about money, drugs, girls, all of these things, the hood. But like Logic was like one of those guys who was like, I'm going to take my creative influences and insert it into my album. And he made things like The Incredible True Story, which was like the story out of his mind. And he made music that went along with it. And that's why I just like him so much is he brought two things together that no one thought could go together, right? Like sci-fi and hip hop. And he just did such a good job of it. And I got into that. I bought into that message, and just also his whole thing with like peace, love, positivity. Like, I'm all about those vibes. So it was very, very cool. And so as one of his big fans, this book was a fantastic read. And I knew I kind of crapped on him with Vaccine and all that, and that, his mid album that he released recently. But I have high expectations every time it's Logic because, I've seen this man reach the pinnacle. He does such good things. But anyway, he's not afraid. He's never afraid. That's the thing about Logic. He's never going to be afraid of he's never going to shy away from doing something that he doesn't want to, like that he wants to do. And reading this book was cool to get an insight into his life and the different things that he's been through. It felt like he was telling me stories and we were sitting down and having a conversation, which was cool. And by the way, this man has had a rough life. Jeez, I was looking through, like, it's some parts of this book are hard to read because it's like a human being really went through this. Like, that's awful. But that's also me talking from like suburbs, like grew up with middle class parents. Yeah. But also like one of as one of his fans, like it was super interesting to get that insight. But as a pure book, I don't know what happened. Hold on. I thought something happened with my computer. But also like as I was saying, like as one of his fans, it's definitely interesting to get that insight for sure. But as a pure book, like, is this the best novel I've ever read? No. Right. But I like it because it's super approachable. It's very digestible, it's very approachable, very conversational. But overall, I think there's gonna be a lot of people that like read this book and are like, yo, what did I just read? This is like so mid. It's not very good. And I just tell them, like, bro, this is a good book. You just have to like trust the structure in a lot of ways and just be like, continue reading and continue reading. It's not a traditional memoir in any sense of the word. It's very raw. It feels like he's, like I said, he feels like he's having a conversation with you. But I like that. I like those types of books. And so that's why I think I gravitate to this book so much. And I just finished, I'm not done reading it. I'm like almost done. I'm like 50 pages left. So I haven't finished it. I haven't gotten to the end, but I've read most of it, and it's very solid. I forgot to say that at the beginning, which is weird. I don't know why. But what I'm learning from this book, from what I've read so far, is and just in general, to be a creative in any industry, I'm trying to tell you guys some of the lessons I've learned. You got to work your ass off, and you got to want it more than anybody else. That's the key, right? If you want the privileges of being self-employed and making your own money and making a good amount of money off yourself, you have to work harder than everybody else. And I mean, I already knew that, I think I have a good work ethic. I think I'm working on being a better hard worker in that sense. But oh yeah, if you want the privileges of being self-employed, you got to work harder than everybody who's got a 9 to 5 job, 50 times as hard. And what I'm also learning though is you have to pivot. And I think this is key. I think pivoting is super important because you have to be able to learn that, okay, this particular aspect of things isn't working out. So let me focus hard on this and keep pivoting and keep seeing what works. And whatever like catches fire is where you got to like foster your home. And that's what I'm learning. It's like you got to short-term sacrifice for the long-term goals. I'm good with that. And that's something I'm slowly trying to adopt, I guess. And also, I've learned that, like this book, I mean, basic life lesson. I have so much to be thankful for in life. I have a great support system around me. I have a really good family. I have great friends. I have everything around me that I could ask for, and I've been safe my entire life. I don't have to worry that my family is going to go behind my back and try to kill me, which in this book has been the case. Uh, because without that support system, without that solid foundation, like what the hell is this all for? Who is this for? Like, let's be honest. And I've been stuck recently, like in a bind with like balancing relationships and family and like doing stuff with like friends and stuff. We're back from spring break and doing stuff with family and all of these things. But also like really trying to spend time, really work hard, really hit the books hard, making this shit happen with this podcast. And so I'm trying to like get it. I'm trying to get that balance, and it's difficult to like take advice from people who haven't made it creatively, quote unquote, like have reached success, have reached levels of self-employment that they can go unemployed, or don't have to have a job and also do this career. Like I want to, like there's not very many people in my life that have that. It's not. I don't think there's anybody in my life that's just like I'm a creative who has self-made it. I'm self-made creator, right? And so I think I have to really learn on the fly and sort of see the examples that people are putting out there. And so this book is definitely an example of that. And I love how Logic is just continuing to be creative, doing all these amazing things like he always has. From indie albums to Supermarket to Under Pressure, just different shit, and he always tries new stuff. To the Incredible True Story. And he's showing people and creatives that they don't have to be defined by one field, right? Logic is not just a rapper. He's an author. He's a speaker. He's a YouTuber. He does all of these different things. And it should be you should be defined by all the projects you're doing. And I think that's just really cool. And I think Childish Gambino is also the same way. He's done a lot of these, he's a creative more than he is a just one rapper. So creatives should, honestly, my advice is just, like, not my advice. I don't know why you should take, but I guess like my suggestion after reading this book and also just like looking into it more is like, if you're creative, like just do every creative idea that comes to you, because you never know what it's going to lead to, is like my thing, is like, because I shouldn't be giving this advice because I haven't done shit. But I guess that's what I'm noticing is like, why don't we just try new shit and see what sticks? I don't know. But yeah, that's what I learned from Logic's book. And listen, we got 2 news stories to cover before we finish the show. But yeah, Logic's book, man, available everywhere. It's called This Bright Future, memoir by Bobby Hall. I recommend it if you're his fan. 100 and you like his music, 100% go read this book. If you're not really his fan, I would still recommend it. I would just say like be patient. It's definitely one that takes a little bit of time, but I think like if you ever like you will get into it. You just have to give it its time and understand sort of the structure and the narrative behind the book before you really get into it. Okay. Daylight savings time. Let's talk about it, right? Okay. Terrible transition. How are we gonna it's a new day of this bright future. Get it? I'm funny. I'm funny as hell. Look, daylight savings time. This has become like a recent conversation within the United States. I'm gonna keep this one short because it doesn't really have much legs yet as a story, but I wanted to talk about it. So the Senate this past week basically voted unanimously and said we want to adopt standard time and get rid of daylight savings. So basically getting rid of like changing our clocks an hour back and an hour forward twice a year. And those things should be eradicated. So I was looking into this. I was like, wait, okay, this like sounds cool on the surface. Like, oh, I don't have to change my clock. I don't have to like go through my quote unquote jet lag every twice a year for like 2 days. So here's the thing though. America has actually tried this before. For those of you that don't know, America has tried standard time before. They tried this back in the 1970s to reduce energy consumption. And so this was like during when like gas prices were like an all-time high and all of these things. And there was like, you know, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of like the cars just like lining up at gas stations and whatnot. So they tried this in the 70s. And it was supposed to reduce energy consumption. That was the goal. And it didn't. So the whole act was repealed back in 1974. And apparently, well, the way this looked was that people were going to school and work in the dark. They were going, it was dark outside at like 8 a.m. And apparently it doesn't, like the sun doesn't rise till like 9 a.m. sometimes in like the dead of winter, which is interesting. But also, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest. Like, it was repealed back in the 70s. So that maybe that should tell you something that human beings just generally didn't like it. But I never like you have people in the Senate that are like fighting for this issue. They unanimously passed it, but like in Congress who are like fighting for this issue. And someone like was quoted saying like darkness kills and sunshine keeps people alive. Like I was like, "Oh, I never really thought of that, but dark in that context, like that's a dark context to think of the word dark in, but okay." But Congress agreed. Well, the Senate agreed. And I mean, it's hard to find things that Mitch McConnell and Bernie Sanders both agree with. So they agreed on something. This standard time, and people's mentality is that listen. Like, there's some people out there who are like, yes, change it. But there are also some people who are like, they don't want it to be dark till 9 a.m., which is fair. But also, bro, like, is this really what we're worried about right now? Like, as America, you think about this. In 6 years that we've been in partisan gridlock, this is one of like 3 things we've agreed on. This is one of 3 things our representatives can agree on is standard time must be put into place. Like, I just find that freaking hilarious. And this has been getting a lot of press coverage in America. And I absolutely understand why, because like it literally affects everyone. And so like people care about it, which is cool. Like that's fine. Honestly, I really have no stance on this issue. I don't care. Like it'll be dark at 8 a.m. So what? You start your day, you move on. It was dark when I started my day this morning at 6:30. Like it's not a big deal. You just move on. So whatever. I people are gonna get hella divisive over it, right? And this is gonna be like, oh, it's really a hard issue, you know, Mitch. Like, I don't know. It's whatever. Like it's just like there's so many other things in the world to give a shit about, and then people really care about this. Like that, I don't know. Apparently, it was this year that really just daylight savings time hit Americans so hard that they decided that Congress just woke up one day and they were like, we need to pass an act. And all of us will agree, from Bernie Sanders to Mitch McConnell, to do this for real. And I was like, I'm like, whoa, okay. All right, America. Okay, bro. I guess it hit y'all different. Daylight savings time hit different this year. But anyway, it doesn't matter. You move on. It's not like a stimulus check where you're just getting money from the government, but you're going to have to adapt to whatever situation that they pick. And I don't particularly care. If there's protests in the street over this, it'd be the most white thing on the planet. Yeah. I'm just imagining it in my head. Anyway, listen, that was the daylight savings time story that's going on right now. But I want to highlight another news story that's happening, and I think this one's more important and will actually have an impact on the future of our country. Although, not particularly, but it's still something worth noting. Ketanji Brown Jackson. This is the headline that's been going on recently. The news headline in America, at least for Supreme Court justices. Remember, we did a story way back about Stephen Breyer and his retirement. So he retired from the court way back, like a couple months ago. That's way back for me. But he retired a couple months ago, and so Joe Biden had time to pick his nominee, and he nominated this woman by the name of Ketanji Brown Jackson. And to become the next Supreme Court justice to take Stephen Breyer's place since he retired. So her hearing has just begun. I think we're in day 3 or day 4 right now. So the Senate is going to question her about her various qualifications. She should be able to pass this because she relatively routinely, unless something like crazy happens during the process, a couple crazy Supreme Court hearings that we've had in the past. Brett Kavanaugh, as you guys remember, that one was the most recent. And then Clarence Thomas, but those were for like sexual assault cases. So nothing like that has come up with Ketanji Brown Jackson. But let's find out everything we need to know about Ketanji Brown Jackson. Okay, she definitely has the experience, okay? She's got multiple degrees from Harvard, a bachelor's, a master's, a law degree. Like, she's done her time in education, which, like, ugh. But, like, also, good job. You're a justice. You need to have the education if you want to advance in this field. She's done her time in the court system, and she knows what's up. She's very experienced. She's working for the court in the District of Columbia right now, which is known to be like the second most powerful court in the United States besides the Supreme Court, and she was one of the justices. She's one of the justices there right now. She started out as a public defender. So for those of you that don't know what a public defender is, that's basically when the lawyer that's basically when you are the lawyer that the courts appoint you as. Like, so if you can't afford legal representation, you don't have your own private legal representation, the court will appoint you with the lawyer. That's what a public defender is. She was one of those people. So she defended a lot of cases of people who, like, just were dead broke and couldn't afford to have legal representation. She defended them and allowed them to have their free lives, which is cool. It's a very honorable job. It's probably the most honorable form of a lawyer that I can think of. So Joe Biden was actually a public defender. Fun fact. It's very, actually, I'm very pro public defenders. I like public defenders. But yeah, so it is humble beginnings, to be honest, but it is admirable. And what I've seen from her so far, she has legal qualifications for sure. She's very soft-spoken, very sweet. She seems very considerate, very sweet, and very focused on her job, which is cool from what I've seen from the hearings and stuff. So she's definitely someone who's going to get grilled by the GOP, 100%. But I think that's every justice. And that's the thing, right? This is what's so fucking interesting. The GOP these justice hearings have basically turned into another political battleground for Democrats and Republicans to fight. Because the Republicans, when Trump was president, they brought, Amy Coney Barrett, who basically looks like an evil Pam Beasley, and Brett Kavanaugh to the stand. And Democrats would shit on them, and it was like this whole process of like, no, like all of these things. And Republicans would just defend her. And now we're seeing the same thing with Ketanji Brown Jackson. The Democrats are all behind her, and the Republicans are like, no. So it's really annoying, but whatever. But she was, again, she had an appeals court nomination, because when you get nominated to the DC court or any of like the federal courts, you have to have a nomination in the Senate. And so Lindsey Graham apparently like grilled her on systemic racism, and she like gave him a snappy liberal answer, as they all do. But she is like more of a liberal justice. I would say she aligns with Breyer kind of nicely, so it's gonna fit well within the court. I don't think like the balance of the court won't shift, but it's going to it's gonna kind of remain the same. She also has sided with Donald Trump a couple times in opinions, so that is exciting to see that she's open to hearing the other side as well when it comes to her decisions. And yeah, court hearings are political battlegrounds where senators basically just try to one-up each other, and it's bullshit because it should be about the justice and actually if they're qualified. I'm not trying to say Ketanji Brown Jackson isn't qualified. She is 100% qualified. You look at her, like, what's it called? Her record, like her education, her what she's done in the legal sense of things. Like she's a big deal. So I'm for the nomination personally. I don't really care. I don't think that anyone should be anti it. But politics being injected into the process itself, that's what I'm very anti. It sucks. But personally, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of court appointments, this is huge in terms of the identity perspective, which I'll talk about in a second. But this isn't huge in terms of like the political spectrum. So this is just going to continue. It's going to be whatever it is. It's going to continue to be a conservative majority, and this liberal justice will just replace another liberal justice. And here's the thing. There's this guy, Clarence Thomas, who's one of the most conservative justices on the Supreme Court. Apparently, he says like 2 words a hearing. I was told yesterday he's in the hospital right now for flu-like symptoms. And apparently a lot of liberal people are cheering about that. Shut the fuck up. I'll tell you that much. Shut the fuck up, liberals. Don't just cheer for someone's death, please. Like, why have we reached a point in society and in politics where we're like, yes, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is fucking about to die. Right? Like, hella conservatives were like, RBG is gonna die. I'm like, what is wrong with you? What is fucking wrong with you people? This woman just died. Like, relax. All right? Like, or like, is about to die. Like, she's a fucking human being. Right? It's the same shit with Clarence Thomas. Yes, I get he may not agree with you politically, but shut the fuck up, dude. He's a human. Anyway, that's what I have to say about like this whole thing of like people dancing around like Supreme Court justices about to die and stuff. Fuck that. But it's a big identity appointment for Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is what this topic is about. And she would be the first Black woman justice ever. And so if she were ever to be confirmed, it would be blasted all over the internet. You'd see all sorts of social media infographics coming from all the white girls everywhere in America. Like, oh my God, today is a great day for America. Yes. Right? But listen, I'm not against her in any way. I just want to make that clear. That was a joke. I'm not against her. But I don't like the fact that Biden openly was like, I will only have a Black woman Supreme Court justice. Right? I'm for that. But like, do you have like I don't get the point of like being so like in your face about it. Like, nah, she's gonna be a Black woman. I don't know. I don't know about that. Joe makes suspect decisions, but I personally don't have a problem with Ketanji Brown Jackson, like I've said 18 times before, but I have a problem with Joe Biden openly coming out and being like, she has to be a Black woman, because then it just looks like a diversity check hire, which is bullshit, when it takes away from the fact that Ketanji Brown Jackson is actually hella qualified for the job. But yeah, she's very qualified. She's got all the qualifications. In the grand scheme of things, shouldn't be a big deal. But that's all I got today in terms of the Changavi Show, episode 29 in the books. Appreciate all of you for sticking with me to the end. If you guys like the episode, feel free to like and hit the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, hit the follow button. If you're on Apple Podcasts, hit the freaking 5-star review. Make sure that your boy is getting clout. And yeah, follow me on socials. The link is down below. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all at the Changavi Show. Super simple handle. You can type it in. You can hit the follow button to follow for more good content and funny hot takes and stuff like that. So that's all I got. But yeah, episode 29, Anuj Changavi coming to you live from his parents' house. Signing off. Yeah. That's all I got. Okay, anyway, that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate all of you. It's an honor to be here. Honored to do this episode. Episode 29 in the books. Changavi signing off. Peace.